Welcome, Scott. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Business of Personal Brand podcast. It's a real honor to have you here. And I worked out just before we got on that I think we're only maybe a couple of thousand kilometers away from being legitimately on opposite sides of the world. How cool is that?
Yeah, it's always funny so you're in Australia, correct?
Yes, I'm in Brisbane in Australia.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, so it's funny, whenever I have conversations with somebody in Australia, it's typically at 7 p.m. my time, which I think is 9 a.m. your time. Am I correct?
Yes, it is. Very good.
Yeah.
Very good.
So,
yes.
I mean, it's just like, I know when it's going to happen every time. So it's fun.
Very cool, because I actually opened up earlier time slots. So I was happy to do the 4 a.m. start for you, but I was very honored that you decided to come in at a more reasonable time slot. So thank you.
Yeah, no, I got to be flexible these days.
Absolutely. Great stuff. So Scott, can I just get you to give anyone who's listening who hasn't heard from you or heard about you before a little bit of an intro to who you are and how you've got to be where you are today?
Sure. Yeah. So my name is Scott Wyden Kivowitz. I have been a photographer since the early 2000s, and I've basically photographed full gamut of genres in photography. I've spent a lot of time doing families. I've spent a lot of time doing headshots and including some personal brand work. And over the years, just things have shifted and life has gotten in the way and things change, and just wound up finding myself in the proposal photography space. So that is
so cool.
Yeah. It is. It's I like to say that it's all the pressure of a wedding, but without the wedding.
Oh my gosh. I so hear that.
Yeah. It's everything packed into like a 2-minute span. But then you've got I throw in an mini engagement session with the proposal. So it's not literally me there for 2 minutes. But yeah, so it's a lot of fun and high pressure.
Yeah, you've got to get it right.
Yeah, so
you can't...
you do have to get it right. Yeah. Interestingly, at the same time as my photography work shifting from families and portrait work and headshots and things like that to proposals, I also wind up landing a job at Imagen. It's a company that I know many people have heard of at this point. So I was very early on with Imagen. I was also working previously for 10 years, also in the sales service software side of things for photographers. And so it was a perfect fit for me to make that move in my full-time job. And so I've been with Imagen for quite some time at this point. I think somewhere around 3 years. And it's been a blast. It's been a blast to see it grow and all that.
Pretty cool journey, because I think you've got to see the inside of a lot of photographers' businesses, I would expect, and the mechanisms that are working and not working for photographers. What was it, I guess, about Imagen that maybe kind of like sparked your interest in those early days that you went, yeah, okay, I'm interested in this company and I want to go in with them?
For college, I actually got a degree in photography technology. So I've always been somebody who has wanted to spend a lot of time in the photo space, but also I've had this love of technology. So it's just like the perfect combination there for school. And I was actually working on the website side of things for 10 years. So in the WordPress space, but for photographers for 10 years. And when Imagen came along, it was just so intriguing. Like AI already started becoming a thing in the website space. ChatGPT has been around longer than what people realize it's been around. So I've already been dabbling in using AI for different things. And when I was approached by Imagen, I was like, this is really interesting what it's actually doing. To be honest, the first time that I tried it, I couldn't get it to work, but it was that early on. And so it took another go with some other updates that they did for me to be like, wow, this actually works. And that's kind of crazy. But I'm also colorblind. So what was most intriguing to me was I can now edit without having to worry about all the other things that I have in place to ensure accurate color. I can now just use Imagen and my problem is solved. So that was most intriguing to me. And it's just proven itself that, yes, it does have that impact on different people, including myself.
So personally speaking, I mean, I don't suffer from the same sort of thing as you do with the color blindness, but I did suffer a lot from inconsistencies. I could, depending on what my mood was, depending on the color of the room that I was editing, there was a lot of things that kind of got in my way of feeling consistent. So I can only imagine what it's done for many other people with with all different sort of difficulties, even learning difficulties around software and things like that. What are some of the things that you've seen it be able to do for people like maybe in different circumstances that have different issues or difficulties?
Yeah, two stories that really stand out above the rest. One, I think, is just like truly miraculous. I don't know if you know this, but Imagen has a podcast as well.
I do.
And one of our early guests, her name is Hannah Hall Bedeau. I believe I spelled her last name correct or pronounced it correct. And when I had her on the show, it was 4 or 5 months after she really started digging into Imagen heavily, and it really became an essential part of her workflow. And she told a story that is just mind-blowing. She was coming home from a wedding with her husband, who's also a wedding photographer, and they were driving home and they got into a car accident. And she almost lost her right arm. And she had to go through multiple surgeries, and she couldn't shoot, she couldn't edit, she was behind on her entire backlog of weddings from the season. And that's when she discovered Imagen. Somebody told her, hey, try this, maybe it'll solve your problem, and it did. So she trained her profile, it learned how she would edit from all of her past weddings, and she was able to get her entire backlog done to the point where by the time she was done with all of her surgeries, I think she had one surgery left, she still shot a wedding. Basically, we were able to help her to save her business because she literally couldn't do it. She couldn't sit there at a computer, and it would hurt. So she got this gnarly scar, on her arm. So it's a fantastic podcast episode. It's one of her early episodes. She tells the story way better than I do, but that is like the most impactful because she physically couldn't do her job that she needed she's a righty. She needed her right arm. She couldn't hold the camera. She needed her right arm. Yes, there's disabilities like color blindness, but it's the being able to help people in that situation is just that's the spark that hits our hearts at Imagen.
That's crazy. I mean, I remember back in the days when I was shooting weddings and I fell pregnant and I hadn't planned for I was married, but I just hadn't quite planned in the thing. So I literally was shooting weddings right up until 2 weeks before my daughter was born. And when she was born, I had this backlog, same thing, right, of weddings. And this is back in the day where you had to open every single individual image and look at it and assess it. And I have photos of me with me lying in front of my computer back like this with my daughter asleep on my belly and me editing because I had no choice, right? The brides didn't wait for that, right? And that's the thing. It's, I guess, no matter what's going on in your life, unfortunately, business has to go on, doesn't it? And I find so many times people get that backlog place with their editing and with other things inside of their business. And I just have such a love. I don't know if you know anything about my story, but basically I used to have an in-house retoucher. So I've tried every different style of outsourcing. So I had VAs that were doing it. I went to all of the major companies, but I always used to get really frustrated because I'd train somebody up or I'd get somebody doing what I wanted it to do. And then suddenly they would leave.
Yes.
Or they'd get shifted to a different department and suddenly they just disappeared. So that's when I decided to bring somebody in-house. But that cost me like $70,000 a year. So what happens when you do that? You have to work twice as hard to do it. I had to get more on the camera in order to have the luxury of doing that, which is why when I'm going to be honest with you, your emails were coming into my inbox for 6 months before I tried Imagen. And then one day I was just like, I got my editing bill actually for the month before and it was $3,800, right? And I went, this AI thing's been coming into my door. I'm just going to give it a go. I decided to record myself doing a whole shoot in order to just test it for my students and say, okay, I'm going to try and do this. And within 20 minutes, I'd saved myself thousands of dollars. I was just like, what the actual? This is crazy. Yeah. So what would you say to people who right now are sitting on the fence about jumping into AI?
It can't hurt to try it. Like it costs nothing to try it. Nothing. Doesn't cost anything to make a profile. We've got many different sort of avenues you could take to get started. So even if you don't have 3,000 or more photos to create your own personal AI profile, you've got other options.
Including my profile coming soon.
Exactly. And then there, we're giving you, so if you come in just straight to Imagen, you get 1,000 free edits. If you come in with your link, you're getting 1,500 free edits. So you're talking for a personal brand photographer, that's a lot of work done, right? That you can get with 1,500 photos without paying Imagen a dime. So
that's what I said. That's about 15 jobs in my world. Like that's crazy. Like 15 different clients service for free.
So it doesn't cost, there's no harm in trying. I would say try it on your not so busy season, but it still doesn't cost anything to try it.
Yeah,
So
right now in Australia particularly, we are in a bit of a quiet zone at the time of recording. So I do think that this is the best time. And legit, this was when I tried it last year. It was nearly a year to date that I gave it a go. But as I said, like for me, one of the best things that happened was being able to sit there and watch all of my images one by one just open, fully done and looking beautiful without me needing to intervene in any kind of a way. I mean, that you must think as well. Did you start in a darkroom?
I did. Yeah.
Yeah. So you've done the full gamut too. But I don't know about for you, but for me to be able to literally change 15 to 18 years worth of what was a stable workflow. Sure, little pieces of software came and went, but effectively the process of having to open, check an image, color correct it, do whatever, that didn't change in 18 years of me with digital photography until Imagen came through my door. Like, did you find the same thing for you?
Oh, yeah. I mean, so I was a very early adopter to Lightroom, so I got away from the individual opening in Photoshop pretty fast, but I was still let me go through each photo in Lightroom and try to get through it as fast as possible. But even that is hours. It's just so painstaking. And you're so used to doing the same thing with every photo with minor differences here and there. So that's the beauty of AI. It just learns what you're doing and then does it for you. I'm
going to add to that is I actually think it does it better than what the human eye does.
Yeah. Like, well, that's the thing. You're taking the emotion out of it. You're taking the human elements that I'm going to go back to you being pregnant for a second. Okay. So you were pregnant, you were hormonal, right? It happens, right? When you're pregnant. So there were days where you were editing different while pregnant than when you were editing different while pregnant versus while you were editing when you were not pregnant. Those were all different, guaranteed. Right?
100%. And also too, I'm going to say with the differences in attention as well, right? As soon as my baby came along, my attention to detail probably waned for a season and things that I would have gotten caught up on. And I guess that sort of maybe comes back to a level of control and learning to let go. Because definitely when my daughter came along, that's when I started to outsource. Before that, I thought I was Superwoman and I wore it as a badge of honor to do every painstaking thing in my business. I feel very sorry for that girl right now. But, when you sort of have this kind of like, big life changes and things like that, you do need to look at your business differently, right? And sort of go, okay, I need to shape it up. And I guess, right now in the world that we're sort of coming into and the way that the industry itself is changing with all of this AI, I don't know, what do you think? I remember when it was the changeover from film to digital and there was the purists that hung on to film and a lot of them got a little bit left behind for a season. It definitely came back, but there was a few of them got left behind because people wanted digital files. Can you see that maybe happening with people who maybe don't jump on board the latest technologies and things in our industry? What's your opinion on that? Just curious.
I do think that we've gone already past the extreme hesitance for AI, right? Now I think it's just a matter of there's people who are just waiting, right? They're waiting for the one little thing that doesn't exist yet or that they know is coming, whatever, before they jump on, or they're waiting for something, right? But they know they're going to do it eventually. And then there's the people now who they are aware of it already. They just don't want to do it. And I do think, like, for example, there's going to be landscape photographers who have absolutely no need for Imagen. Just is what it is, right?
Yeah.
And that's fine. It's going to exist. But there's going to be the personal brand photographers who might think, I'm not doing that much volume each job. I can still do this myself, that don't think they need Imagen, but in reality, they wouldn't pay Imagen much money and they'd have the extreme consistency. So there's a little bit of education there that has to come in. I don't think it's like any more of mirrorless makes me scared versus DSLR or DSLR makes me scared versus film. I think it's more just waiting for that one little thing, or I don't need it. I don't think there's that middle point anymore.
Okay, let's talk about that one new thing then, because something that I have absolutely loved playing with from Imagen over the last couple of months is the culling that you guys, it's still in beta testing, I think, isn't it? Like as a feature. I've got a funny story to tell you actually, because I do mini shoot days. So basically I do like 5-6 shoots in a day. So I'm doing all of my culling and my, processing all together. So it's like batching my workflows. But I was recording this to teach the other day, and it was the first time I'd actually played with the culling inside of Imagen. And I was saying it out loud. I'm like, no, I don't really agree with this cull. I'm going back through and thing. And then when I went back and reviewed it, I was like, actually, Imagen got it right first time. Actually, Imagen got it right first time. And I was totally contradicting myself as I was recording these videos. So I'm actually really, really quite astounded at how good it is at this early stage of the development of it. Talk to me about where it's going.
There's been a lot of development that that happens behind the scenes. So what you're seeing now with the in-app culling, what we call Culling Studio, is really a second user experience iteration of culling. But all along the way, there's been major behind-the-scenes improvements between just the overall algorithm, between improving blur detection and eye detection, all these kiss detection, all that stuff. A lot of that stuff, most of that stuff, we don't even expose for you at the moment to see, eyes closed like some of the others do. But originally, the culling was actually doing exactly what our community was asking for. Let me cull in Lightroom Classic, just do it through Imagen, and then send the ratings back to Lightroom. So we kept our culling extremely simple. And then over time, people started asking for more, right? So that's when we went back to the drawing board and said, okay, well, they're asking for this, let's do this. So we're like, if we're going to do in-app culling like what the others are doing, let's make it in Imagen style. So we spent a lot more development on the algorithm and the data points where it learns for things like kiss and eyes and blur and all that, all the technicality stuff. We also trained on aesthetics, like heavily trained on aesthetics. So sure, it may not know what you think is good aesthetics at the moment, but there's so much room potential for it to go where everybody wants it to go. And also the one thing that we've done, which makes it extremely unique that nobody else is doing, is we're actually showing you your project in the culling studio, all these thumbnails or the large photos as if they were edited already. So you're getting this sort of low resolution edit preview, which you can actually basically you're shooting this personal brand session, right? You've gone from in a coffee shop to in your client's office to outside in a park or whatever you're doing, whatever it is, right? And typically you might see, okay, this one's underexposed, my flash misfired, oh, I overexposed this one, right? You're looking at the culls and you're trying to figure out what is the best one with all this inconsistency all over the place, because stuff happens, right? I, like many others, went for the cheaper brand strobes and they misfire quite often. With Culling Studio, I can edit it as if with my profile, or I can cull it rather with my profile applied to the photos in this sort of low resolution preview. So it's not straightening it, it's not cropping it, it's not doing a lot of the stuff that it would once you fully edit it, but I can view it in this better story with consistency in place. Misfires won't look as bad as they do. Over and underexposed won't look as bad as they would normally. We would do our best to even everything out and give you this good, consistent look in your own style, which is, it's mind-blowing when you actually see it work. It's just like, how? But it works. It's amazing.
You are singing music to my ears, because I've actually been paying to pull out all of the color corrected images first so that I could do this exact process. So guys, I'm learning so much here. I'm loving this. It's amazing. So I just wanted to also talk to you a little bit about why I wanted to partner with you guys, because what I can see that you guys do in particular really well is create community. And I wondered why that was. I mean, we all know kind of like that's why there's a strategic move, but you guys just seem to be doing it so much more impressively than anyone I've seen, which is why I was just like so keen when I was at WPPI. I came running up to the stand and I was like, I want to be part of this world, because I just think that what you are doing for the photography community is just amazing. Can you talk to me a little bit more about that?
Oh yeah, so that's what I do at Imagen. It's all about community, and so we knew very early on. I mean, that I was hired to build the community around Imagen, and then I pitched the podcast, and they loved the idea, so I ran with that too. But our founders, we have three co-founders, they knew right off the bat that, this AI is a hot topic. Not only is AI a competitive space, so is photography is a very competitive space. And they recognized that very early on as well. So they found me and they said, let's build this community. And basically the whole point of the community is this flywheel. It's get the community, the photographers, just talking about all the stuff in their lives and their businesses, anything that we can do to bring up conversations, raise awareness for things like mental health, all these things that don't get talked about enough. But then there's lighter topics like, what is the shoe that you wear in your photo sessions or at weddings or whatever? And I mean, we just did this last week in the community, and it's one of the most popular topics that we've ever had. And I'm just like, why? But okay, it makes, people love it. They love talking about this kind of stuff.
Was there a top performing answer, just FYI?
So I need to take all the comments and look at it, but I do think that Skechers was actually a trending one, which shocked me a little bit actually. But I'm gonna get back to you on that. I'm gonna export all of it and look at it. Yeah. So we've got this right to get the community engaged, but also to gather feedback for the product. So I log every bit of feedback that comes through the community, and if it's super important, if I need to raise a flag, I'll raise a flag at that moment in time. But otherwise, I'm logging it, putting into this report, and once a month, I'm meeting with every product manager on our team and talking about here's what our community is asking for or saying or whatever it might be. And it's actionable, like profile adjustments. That came from the community, 100%, right?
Yeah, right.
Calling studio came from the community. All this stuff is a big thing that it's all like a flywheel. Community is to get people talking about various things, including Imagen. I share things with product creates it, goes back to the community and so on. It's just driving itself. It's all the community that is shaping the future of Imagen. It really is. So that is why it's so important is Imagen is all about its community. And the community is helping Imagen build things for themselves, basically, right? Building things for them. So cool.
I've definitely felt this and I've definitely seen it. Yeah, it is a really, really cool way of doing things. And I mean, we are sort of at the start of this. You guys are obviously years into it, but as an industry, I guess we're really at this sort of the start of this. So how cool that a company like yours is actually taking into account what people want and are actually able to action it in relatively real time. I mean, I know that there's probably months of prep that going beyond.
Oh, yeah.
But it doesn't seem like it's a big lead time between you guys getting fed ideas and you actually being able to action them. Like from a consumer's point of view, it feels like it's just going at rapid speed.
So we have a large team at Imagen, and everybody's separated into their internal teams, right? So there's a product team that all they do is culling. Day in, day out, they're just on culling. And there's a product team just on editing. And there's a product team who's just working on the AI stuff in general. And there's a product team who's only doing the design aspects of Imagen and so on and so on. And the backup feature, right? That's got its own team, and et cetera. There are things like that somebody might say, I wish that Imagen could do this. Somebody in the community might have brought up 4 months ago that I brought to the product team and they already started working on 4 months ago. And then it might feel like, oh, this became a trending topic in the community now, even though one person brought it up, 4 months ago, and guess what? It's here in like a month, whatever it might be, right? So It might appear fast. For the most part, things take time. There are some things where they're very quick. So here's an example, okay? As of right now, we are rolling out in-app notifications. So typically it's been your calls are done, your edits are done, you get an email, right? You're still going to get the email, but we've got an in-app notification system where you get a little alert that says your calls are done, your edits are done, whatever it might be. It also means that I can now eventually send a message to community members through the app and say, hey, come vote on this poll or whatever it might be. I'm very excited about.
You get more connection points. Yay.
yeah, exactly. But one of our partners was like, hey, the in-app notification system needs a little sound that you can turn on or off if you want the sound. And I'm like, that's a good point. Like, why doesn't it exist? He even offered to make the sound, which is great. So we're going to be experimenting with I started making some sounds because I got a music background too. So I started toying around with it as well. But that is going to be a half a day thing for the product team to add. It's an easy thing, right? So when it's an easy thing, it's really not much time for a change to happen.
Can I just say that's pretty cool because a lot of the times I set up things and I walk away from my computer and I might do some housework or something like that. And then I come back and I go, oh, the email came in like 20 minutes ago and I missed it, so to be able to get that. And I really don't like Facebook groups. So to be able to communicate with you through an app would be much better for me than going into the Facebook sort of
it would still send you to the Facebook group, but
okay. It's so long as I just can go in there and find what I need to find and look at the discussion point for that day and then get out of there. That's fantastic.
Yeah. I really want to bring community aspects into the app. The tricky part is not finding a way to bring community into the app without taking people away with the true purpose of the app, right?
Yes.
We don't want to make it a distraction from what they actually need the app for. So
yeah, completely understand. Now, okay, so we've talked about obviously what Imagen can do right now and what it's doing. Yeah. Is there any kind of like sneaky peeks that you can share about what might be coming down the line?
You know how if you're going through to edit or cull and we ask you what genre of photography it is? So
yes, can you put personal branding on the list?
So a lot of people ask, like, why do you need this, right? And there's a variety of reasons. One, you're basically helping to train the recognition of, what the photos are, right? You're saying this project. So it's funny, we don't actually see the photo. We just see the data of the photos. Right. So we see a bunch of ones and zeros and whatever. So it's basically training in that way. But at the same time, it's allowing us to say, if it is personal brand, let's say, because I know that's not in there right now, but hypothetically, if you choose personal brand, expose these features exclusive for personal brand, right? So we've got a lot of stuff like that is coming, one of which we've already released, and it's currently in beta, but it's actually for real estate photographers. So if they choose real estate, they're getting HDR merge, they're getting perspective correction, things that no other genre has in Imagen. And then there's one coming for school and sports as well, which is going to be a different type of crop that doesn't exist elsewhere because they have a very specific need, and a lot of stuff like that coming. Now, I don't know if personal brand will wind up in there, only because it hasn't proven to be as popular of a genre among all the Imaginers yet to make it in there. But if it does, it will definitely wind up in there or whatever. I don't know. So
which I think is an interesting thing for you to raise, because like a lot of my listeners obviously are personal brand photographers, but a lot of them are doing weddings and families and personal branding, so it's not necessarily something that I think a lot of people go all in on. However, it's definitely a growing sector. Like, I mean, everybody needs content, right? So whether you call it personal branding or you call it social media content, I think a lot of the time it sort of, overlaps each other. But it definitely, I'm quite happy to sit in the headshot scenario for now and tick that box, and sometimes portraits. So it's totally fine. I'm not upset by it. Now, I wanted to ask you one cheeky question, because I know that this is something that you ask a lot of your listeners, is what's something right now in your business that you are doing to save time or money?
Oh, steal one of my questions. Okay. It's funny. The episode, we just dropped an episode today, and we're recording this on July 1st, 2024. We just dropped an episode today, and she actually said to me, "Who's going to interview you?" So like, I think she was offering to be the guest host to interview me.
That's very cool.
Yeah. I mentioned I've been using ChatGPT for a very long time before people knew about it. I've got a lot of prompts that I use on a regular basis, but what I do that actually saves me a lot of time is actually use Cast Magic. Now, Cast Magic was designed originally for podcasting, and it's basically this SaaS, the software that is built on top of ChatGPT, but it is designed so that I can drop in a video or audio file, and I'll have they call them spaces. You can have multiple spaces. So I can have a space for my own YouTube content. I can have a space for things that I just need for my blog and not to be on YouTube. I can have a space for the Workflows Photography podcast. I can have a space for having on my phone and just notes while I'm walking around. I often go for walks when I need to think, and I'll just walk around the neighborhood and I'll just have my headphones in and talk to this app, and it's recording me. And in each space, you can have a whole bunch of prompts, unlimited amount of prompts for that specific space. So I can drop in 100 episodes of a podcast into this, and it's going to generate whatever the prompt is for all 100. I don't have to go into ChatGPT and say, do this one. No, do this one. It's all just bulk. And so one thing that works very well for me is talk gibberish to my phone if I need to create a blog article for my website or landing page content for my website. And then the prompt, it's just going to create that content for me based on what I said, even if it makes no sense while I'm speaking it. So Cast Magic, which again is built on top of ChatGPT, you don't need a ChatGPT API, whatever. It has its own. You just pay Cast Magic. But amazing. I love that service so much.
That is such a good share. And I think such a good share for my audience in particular, because I know so many people struggle with even just getting into ChatGPT and understanding what kind of questions to ask it and coming out with generic content. So to be able to take your own thoughts, download them, and then let ChatGPT make sense of it from a verbal perspective, because let's face it, most of us are not writers. We're photographers for a reason. We've got a camera in our hand because that's what we love to do.
Yeah. And what Cast Magic does is when you create a space, you say this is for YouTube or this is just meetings, right? If it was you're having a client meeting, you can record those, drop them in, and it can take notes for you, basically. A podcast, or so when you create the space, you pick what it is, And based on what you pick, it actually creates pre-made prompts already that you can delete if you don't want them, but pre-made prompts. So even if you have no idea how to start, it's getting you going pre-made prompts. And then you can always add or modify or whatever. So it's amazing.
Fantastic. Oh my God, that's amazing. Thank you so much for that share. I think that's just such a good way to wrap up this chat. And I really appreciate you being so honest about that. I really, really have loved talking with you today. I am so grateful for you to spending the time. If anyone hasn't tried Imagen yet and they want to give it a go, I'm going to pop a link into this episode so that you can jump in, and you will very soon be able to get your hands on my profile. But Scott, if people want to follow you, where's the best place that they can come and follow you and get some of your infinite wisdom?
So for me personally, anywhere, I'm found at Scott Wyden.
Great stuff. Fantastic. And I thank you again for spending so much time with us today. And thanks for giving us so much insights on Imagen and, of course, productivity and consistency and workflows in general. Thanks very much.
Thank you.